Hey everyone, my name is Chris Lambert, and on this channel we talk Kanye West. And today we're going to go over Kanye Tweets, and you can see at the top of the screen just some news articles and other odds and ends related to Kanye discussion and talk. So let's get into it. Looking at the tweets, you can see the first one was 20 hours ago, and it starts with Kanye just tweeting out the video for Cop Shot the Kid. Which is a song that he did with Nas in 2018. It was released as part of Nazir, but actually, from what Charlamagne the God said, it was supposed to be on Kanye's OG album, right? The one that he was initially working to release in 2018 that he ended up scrapping after TMZ and putting on the hat and making what ended up being Ye. So he still had the song with Nas, it just seems like it found a new home. Is he tweeting that because of the current 2020 climate? Just because he's going through old collaborations? It seems it could be either one with Kanye, right? And then he retweeted this, which had me think about old collaborations. So he retweeted Team Kanye Daily's Run Up on Yeezy the Wrong Way, I Might Murk Ya, and it's AJ Express tweeting out, whenever I'm bored, I just watch Kanye and Jay-Z perform Otis at the 2011 VMAs, and then I'm not bored anymore. So that's just what had me thinking just about the fact that, you know, he had worked with Jay, he's thinking about like working with Nas, etc., etc. And he said, "Miss my bro, real talk," and just kind of took a screenshot from that video. You can see he's even still in the Twitter app. Well, you can't see. It's down here at the bottom. He's still in the Twitter app as he's looking at the video. So, I mean, the divide between him and Jay-Z was something that was speculated in 2013 when Jay didn't attend Kim and Kanye's wedding, and became more evident as the years passed, culminating in 2016 when Kanye announced on stage, like, Jay, our kids have never even played together, like, Kim was kidnapped in Paris and you couldn't even call, or you called, but you couldn't even come see me. What is this? And instead of that really like saving things, like the drama between them leading to a reconciliation, it seemed to really only cement the fact that the two are in different parts of their life. I do remember reports from the end of 2016 or even started 2017 that like Kanye and Jay got together, they had a dinner, something like that. It seemed like they had met face to face, but it seems like that 2016-17 period was really the last time that we've seen them interact. And even though Jay has mentioned Kanye still as his like brother, and Kanye said the same thing about Jay, it's clear that they're not very active in each other's lives. And then this was the one from today. Kanye tweeted out, "My mother-in-law, Kris Jenner, makes the best music playlists," which, I mean, I think anybody watching this channel is very well aware of the fact that Kanye just 3 weeks ago, tweeted out a bunch of stuff about Kris and his wife Kim, just that they were trying to have him committed and calling her Kris Jong-un and like very negative things. And for him to then tweet out, "My mother-in-law, Kris Jenner, ... is like dramatic setup for like, oh, what's he gonna say this time? And then makes the best music playlists. Smiley face just seems to be like Kanye's way of showing that things are in a good place between them. I don't think he's being facetious here, or like sarcastic, but just kind of showing that he's back to talking about her and they're in this good spot. He and Kim just recently took a trip that was about a week long with him and their kids. So it seems like things in terms of his wife and family life with her family are getting back on track, and that this is just kind of a way to show that. So we have that going on. And then we move into the articles. So this one was kind of funny, and now I am very bright. Kanye West campaign argues that DNC must prove names like Mickey Mouse on nomination papers aren't real, which, my goodness. Kanye West's presidential campaign has fired back at the Democratic Party's challenges against the campaign's nomination papers, arguing that the party must prove the signatures of some names, including Mickey Mouse and Bernie Sanders, are fraudulent. Wisconsin's Democratic Party filed complaints earlier last week, arguing that state regulators should not allow West's name on the presidential ballot because the campaign was late to submit the required 2,000 signatures. That's because multiple factors. One, The lawyer that Kanye had hired turned them in at 5 o'clock when the deadline was 4:30, and then a lot of them ended up being like Mickey Mouse and Bernie Sanders or not having valid addresses. The same thing happened in New Jersey and in Illinois. So, yeah, so West's team called the challenge misguided and ill-informed, arguing that the state's Democratic Party must prove the signatures on the nomination papers are bogus, which is kind of true. I mean, you could point to it and be like, it says Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse isn't a real person, but there could be somebody out there named Mickey Mouse, you know? I mean, in terms of the law, I do think you have to prove that rather than just assume that. And then Bernie Sanders is a common enough name as well. I know it sounds like I'm just defending, but in terms of like legal process, I would hope that they have to do their due diligence and cross their T's and dot their I's in this. But I can also see the counterpoint that it's insane to try to tie up lawyers or somebody in the mess of proving that people like this don't exist rather than having to prove that they do exist, you know? Yeah, so Curran also argued that West's campaign was not late in submitting the necessary signatures. State law required the paper to be turned in not later than 5 p.m. Curran said although that the aid arrived 14 seconds past the deadline, the papers were still submitted to Wisconsin Election Committee before 5:01 p.m., which, okay, yeah, that's different than what I had read before, but that's also pretty funny. What? The filing went on to claim that the legal action... Well, that's intense. Oh, God. Yeah, that's, okay. Well, so there's that going on in Wisconsin, which is a story that we'll follow as it develops. And then, lighter note, Kanye West spotted wearing a SUNY Brockport hoodie, college responds, which, college at Brockport State University of New York. Yes, SUNY is the State University of New York system. And Kanye, as he was getting off this plane, which was from his vacation with Kim and the kids, you can see you have that lettering right there. And that's a SUNY Brockport. So they just said he's one of us with the eagle, which I think is the mascot. But then they had to back it up because like Kanye's such a politically charged topic at this point. So they then had to say or like release a response saying that SUNY Brockport in no way endorses Mr. West's political views or his recent culturally inaccurate and inappropriate comments. In this particular case, we do think he made an excellent wardrobe choice. It's not every day that a major celebrity wears Brockport gear, and our social media team wanted to share it with our community. Like, man, does that even need to be said? Like, why does that have to be said? Because people are insane and like take everything to the extreme these days, but that's pretty crazy. And you can see here like people's just disbelief about this fact. Like, how did Kanye get a SUNY Brockport sweatshirt? How does he end up with a Brockport hoodie? Seeing Kanye wearing a hoodie of my college is the most exciting thing I've seen. This was my favorite. Imagine being Kanye West, waking up, stepping into your huge wardrobe, thousands of dollars worth of clothes, like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, and putting on a Brockport hoodie. You know, Kanye's just a man of the people. That's just it. But it kind of goes along with, he had tweeted out that Yakima College hoodie. Where is it? Vision Streetwear, that coat, this. Yakima Valley. That's what it is. Or Yakima Valley College. I think Kanye's just into that kind of like collegiate look. It kind of goes a little bit back to the pink polo. We know he's testing hoodies. I think he's just exploring, you know? He's getting some kind of vibe going. So then we have this, DL Hughley thinks Kanye West is conveniently ill when it serves his purpose. There was just like 1 second when I saw this title where I was like, DL Hughley thinks Kanye West is conveniently 3 when it serves his purpose, which like, it's not right, but it would be funny if DL Hughley was going on and on about like, Kanye's conveniently 3. He's conveniently 3. But really, it just goes into the complicated nature of like discussing Kanye's mental health and how people land left or right on the topic. And this is going to be something that we keep returning to, I feel like, through the rest of this year as we do these Kanye West news updates, because these articles aren't going to slow down, which I know can probably get old to some people, but I do think that this is one of the important things about Kanye is that he challenges us to have these conversations and force new conversations, whether or not you agree with what he said or how he said it. Even with him saying George Bush doesn't care about black people, like that was such a giant statement at the time, and people attacked Kanye for saying it. But then at the same time, he's causing us to have a discussion about that very thing. Like, was he right or not right? Once they finally move beyond, should Kanye have said that or not said it? And I think the same thing's kind of happening over the last couple of years. With 2018, Kanye talking about his bipolar diagnosis and the media kind of not including that in their conversations of Kanye's 2018 really at all, or in any kind of meaningful way. Some of the critics talked about it in response to Ye. The album cover made it like a point of conversation, but it wasn't as talked about as it has been in 2020. And just seeing the media try to grapple then with how they talk about mental health and how they talk about Kanye, it's honestly, I think, very important and game changing, because when else have they been challenged to really explore this topic and give people voices to talk about this topic? I think that's pretty great. But Hughley gets into it and gets into more the negative side of the conversation, saying you don't have to be mentally ill to put an asterisk on slavery. And he consistently does it, whether it's Harriet Tubman when he denigrated her, whether he's talking about slaves. He's not so mentally ill that he'll talk about any other people. He talks about people he can get away with. He's not so ill that he's trying to be a disruptor in the political forum. He took $5 million in the PPP payments, which the coronavirus relief for small businesses. So he seems to be conveniently ill when it serves his purpose. And to me, Kanye West is exactly like Donald Trump. But this is the thing, like Kanye hasn't been the one, something in my eye, Kanye hasn't been the one citing his mental health. Like in 2018, he talked about his mental health, but he never said like, excuse my behavior, manic episode. That never happened, and definitely hasn't happened in 2020. Kanye could have tried using it as an out like multiple times for what's been going on, but instead he just says, I'm perfectly fine. Like, you should look at how people are talking about me. Like, stop focusing on that and look at what I'm saying, look at what others are saying. There's more to this conversation. So it is strange to me, Hughley's stance here, because Kanye has never tried to play the victim or use his illness as an escape from criticism, right? Or to justify what he said or backtrack on what he said. He's always just said, this is just me, this is how I feel. I think for the most part, he's stood by it. I mean, even with him at TMZ, he talked about like, I didn't mean what you all think that I meant. He didn't say, I'm so sorry for blah, 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 blah. It was just, no, I meant this rather than what you all thought. And same thing with a lot of what he said at the end of 2018 and what he said in 2020. It's just, y'all need to like get clear on what I'm saying rather than like just saying that I have poor mental health. So I think a criticism like this doesn't quite hold up to the reality of what Kanye said. I mean, you can still be very upset with him, but saying that he's conveniently ill, just, hasn't been the case. Rick Ross wants to host Kanye West's Sunday Service, which, fantastic. Yeah, I'm all for that. And Ross was recently in the news because he did a versus battle. And where was it? I don't even know who he versed. It was somebody big. I should know. You probably know. You're probably like, Chris, it was this person. And you're right. Good job. But yeah, he said, tell Ye to have Sunday service on my lawn. But this follows like, I guess, the rule of threes, and that during the versus battle, he actually showed a verse that he did for Famous, which was pretty awesome. It was in a longer verse. It kind of like, I said on Twitter, like, is this better than the Devil in a New Dress verse? And everybody was like, no, shut up. Stop with this reactionary stuff that you do. Like, it's not better. But it was cool. Like, I really liked the verse that I heard. I liked the kind of energy he had, some of the lines. Like, I don't know if it would be as iconic as the Devil in a New Dress verse, especially like coming after and being kind of a repeat then. But I liked the energy of it, So, but that was cool. And I should link to that. I'll link to that down in the description. But then he also had talked about in a recent interview I just don't want to drop him on his head yet because it ain't clear to me what's going on. He said that about Kanye. I guess Kanye called Rick Ross and Ross was napping, so didn't answer the phone and didn't call Kanye. Like he did call him back. This is what he said. He goes, "I haven't really did any due diligence. I just see what headlines come across, and we know a lot of that shit inaccurate." Yeah. So I'm gonna wait for his phone call again, and hopefully I'm up to catch that motherfucker and ask a few questions. He got to clarify some things though. It ain't looking good. But he said that before saying that he wants to have Sunday service on his lawn. But it's just interesting that Kanye would call him, and instead of being like, "Oh, I'll call Kanye back and we'll have this talk," he's just like, "If he calls me again." I guess when you're Rick Ross, that's how you roll, you know? And then we have this article. This is one of the more thoughtful articles that I've seen about Kanye and Kanye fandom, because I feel like they just fall into like usually polarities. You either have somebody like, we have to defend Kanye no matter what, or you have somebody, rarely, right? Or you have somebody that's just like, let him go, he's the worst, like, I can't believe this is the man I used to support, blah 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 blah. But here you have Minda Honey kind of like in the middle, and I thought it was interesting how she set the piece up, and it felt very much like how I would write a piece. Maybe that's why I'm gushing about it. But she gets into just what Kanye means to millennials and looking at the legacy of Kanye, which is something that people have really started to do more and more of. Because at this point, we have 16 years of Kanye. And even though his career is still like going full steam ahead, he's released, 3 albums in the last 2 years, with a 4th hopefully maybe someday on the way. But he's still going strong, so you can't really just back off and say, well, we've had time to reflect on Kanye's career. But we're having the time to reflect on what the first part of Kanye's career has meant versus the recent period of Kanye's career. You know, most people that are around for this long have eras. Even you look at athletes, like you have Michael Jordan before the championships, you have Jordan during the 90s and the championship run, and then you have Jordan post Bulls. Like, you have those 3 chapters, and you couldn't really look at the first chapter until the second chapter was in full swing and concluded, and you couldn't really grasp the meaning of the second chapter until the Wizards era was ongoing, and then you really couldn't look at the scope of his career until that 4th part, or until he retired. And same kind of thing with LeBron or Albert Pujols in St. Louis versus Anaheim and what that means for his legacy, all that stuff. Though you can judge the Houston Astros for cheating right off the bat. Cheaters. But this idea of what Kanye means to millennials is, I like that it's being talked about. And I think that this is the case for most of us. That Honey hit the nail on the head here when she talks about the fact that and West taught us millennials, anyone currently in their 30s, how to be unapologetic with it, with just like being yourself, right? If you felt your flyest in a pink polo, wear it. If college was stealing time from what mattered to you, forget that. If you believe the president doesn't care about black people, say that. West used provocative messaging for millennials overburdened with societal expectations. And that's really, I think, summarized a lot of where we're at culturally. Like, there was a breaking down of societal expectations and messaging and political correctness in the way that I feel like there's a lot more freedom of expression and freedom of thought from a lot of the stiltedness that me growing up in the 90s and even those early aughts felt existed in the larger world, that there's been a breaking open. And that's exciting in a lot of ways, though scary in a lot of ways too, when you look at just how polarized we are now. But in that polarization, there's also a lot of middle ground for expression that I think the good will eventually outweigh the bad. We're just in a point of chaos where things have to kind of normalize and find their way. But it's just a really good point, I think, and shows why Kanye's career trajectory, it's not like he's responsible, like the one and only for it, right? But he was on that wave of something that was happening and ended up becoming this focal point for a lot of us that were feeling that and wanting to hop on that wave and feeling it was okay. And his career kind of coincides with that and makes it very special and empowering for a lot of us, and probably speaks to a lot of the reason why so many of us get invested in not just Kanye's music, but in Kanye, the person, you know? But then they go into the fact that over the years, West's provocations have lost their allure. At 35, I'm not so young anymore, and neither is he. He's 43. That's 8 years older than me. That's a Barack Obama presidency. I'm not sure what I have left to learn from him or even how to feel about him, and yet I can't turn away from him. This man who is essentially a stranger to me gave me something intimate and personal, the soundtrack to my 20s. And I think that's part of it too. Like, as you age up, you're always going to push back against those who trained you, taught you, were your mentors, your guides. At some point, you have to establish your own way of thinking. That's the whole, like, part of being a parent, raising a child, where you have to let go at some point because you know that your kid's going to reach that point of having their own thoughts and their own ways of going about things and their own hopes and dreams. If you watch any kind of anime or like story of mastery, the apprentice always at some point has to overcome the master, break from the master. They can't stay in training forever if they want to succeed. And it's the same thing with somebody that inspires you to be yourself. At a certain point, being yourself means that you're going to have a difference of opinion or a difference of view from the person that you had really been learning from. And that's okay. Like, I really think that that's okay to have those differences and those divides. So then it gets into the fact that West's mental health and speaking out about bipolarism. And I still found myself at a loss for how to do that for someone who spent much of his time outside of crisis validating the rhetoric. Oh, yeah. So this was the one point that I had kind of an issue with this article was it said 2 years ago, West spoke publicly about being diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Even as my instinct was to have sympathy for someone publicly struggling with mental health, I still found myself at a loss for how to do that for someone who spent so much of his time outside of crisis validating the rhetoric of white supremacists that makes it harder for me to be black and well in America. And the link goes to this GQ article talking about Kanye designing the logo and hats and stuff for the Blexit movement, which was Candace Owens' movement to encourage black exits from the Democratic platform to the Republican platform. And there was a few days here at the end of October 2018 where Kanye seemed attached to this movement, specifically because Candace Owens had said that Kanye was attached to this movement. And we had seen him in her world, or she in his world, at the start of 2018, right? She was there in March or April and May. She was with him at TMZ, even though they kind of fell off near the end of the year. And a couple days after that article, Candace backtracked hard. She said, I never once said that Kanye designed the t-shirts for Blexits. And Kanye had actually gone onto Twitter. Here. On Tuesday, West expressed on Twitter that he felt he'd been used to spread messages he doesn't believe in and that he was not involved in Blexit. Ye also said he would be distancing himself from politics. He said, I introduced Candace to the person who made the logo and they didn't want their name on it, so she used mine. I never wanted any association with Blexit. I have nothing to do with it. My eyes are now wide open and now realize I've been used to spread messages I don't believe in. I'm distancing myself from politics. That did not last. And completely focusing on being creative, with Candace saying, my statement regarding Kanye West tweets last night, in challenging moments, choose humility and leadership. So I'm somebody that's pedantic enough that I see that link and I'm just like, well, actually, but I think the larger point stands that there were people like Candace that Kanye was kind of in the trenches with at the start of 2018. Like, there was a point where he was seen with Charlie Kirk, I think he was another one, that I think the point that Honey is making here is valid, even if I disagree with the link and what the link went to. I understand having that perspective on Kanye in 2018. You might be saying, Chris, I disagree. And I agree. You can disagree. But if somebody's perspective on Kanye is that he was validating this rhetoric, they're fair to have that perspective given who Kanye was around in that 2018 period, you know? Just like you would disagree that that's what he was doing, you're free to have that perspective as well. And here, his music gave us greater permission to believe in ourselves, and I think that's the thing we're grappling with. So Minda here interviews a couple other people, one an assistant professor at Spalding, a millennial who talked about just his relationship or their relationship with Kanye's music, saying if he's struggling to be his authentic self, what does that mean for my permission to be my authentic self? Which is an interesting question, because that's exactly what Kanye said in 2018, that he was scared to put the hat on, and he put the hat on because it meant he was being true. And by him doing that, whether you agreed or disagreed, it still was giving his fans and other people the permission to be them. That's the thing that he was trying to encourage. You don't have to fall into monolithic thoughts for whatever group you feel you're a part of. From very like local groups of just your family to your friends and their dominant beliefs, to much larger groups of what it is in your state or city, political party, or even country and those dominant beliefs. You can go against the grain, whether that's popular or unpopular to do within your circle. And yeah, a lot of people disagreed with Kanye, but I think when you zoom out to what he was saying there, like, I'm trying to get back to being my authentic self, because even I feel like right now I can't do that because things are so charged and people get so intense. That is fascinating, but yeah, okay. So are millennials trapped in the cycle of wondering if every click or view they give him is promoting his downfall? Can we log off and opt out of the spectacle, or is his fans obligated to keep watching and keep hoping he can return to being or appearing like he's okay? According to Nifley, those of us feeling conflicted should give West space and time. Yeah, I think that's very fair. Like, if you're finding yourself in a space where you're just like, I disagree with everything, you don't have to keep following along. Like, you can take a break, even if you're agreeing with everything, but you're finding the conversation around it to be too intense, too overwhelming. It's somehow like causing that stress. You can just back away. Take that time for yourself, treat yourself, and that can be with Kanye. That can be with anything that you have going on in your life. You can take time for yourself. So definitely encouraging you to do that, whether it's stress that you're having with a Kanye scenario or with anything else. And then Minda goes into a few other conversations with people here. There was one paragraph that was really important that I highlighted, and I'm sad that I lost the highlights. Also interviews this guy, Christopher, who also produces and performs as Dave Will Chris. Dave Will Chris, won't Dave? Chris, huh? Here, okay. This is a country that tells black people we can escape our oppression by being a singular talent like Michael Jackson. Only we arrive at the pinnacle and discover that overcoming poverty is not the same as escaping white supremacy. Our sanity is often the price we're expected to pay to be validated as brilliant by white America. West, as a visible black male celebrity, functions as the United States' guilty conscience over unfulfilled promises. This was an article that lines up with an article that we talked about a few episodes ago, which I'm blanking on the name of the guy, but he talked about the fact that West's journey revealed something, and this current backlash or outburst that he's had, and not outburst in like a mental health way, but outburst in like a very public, I am upset with things way, could be tied to the fact that Kanye ascended to the point of being one of the most powerful people in America when it comes to like financial wealth, celebrity status, all of that, and he's still encountering the limitations of being a black person in America and seeing the limits put on him by the culture of our country and how maddening that must be. Whether it's like triggering bipolar episodes or just frustrating him to no end, there's something about that experience that has to be infuriating to a certain degree, right? And Minda talks about that, or arrives at that same kind of point, which I think is an interesting place to get to. It's not a thought I'd really heard reflected before until much recently. And yeah, that's would send people for a loop. So this is definitely like a thoughtful article to read and go over. Recommended. Okay, let's move on. That's the one link. That's the other link. And then here, black women who argue with Kanye West post his opposite treatment with white women. Oh, that was another link in here. But yeah, okay. Kanye West bipolar disorder and me. When I hear Kanye's rants, I remember my own delusions. And this gets back to another article about the mental health issue and episodes. And it's from Daryl Robertson, who, like with many people that are writing on this topic, suffers from a bipolar diagnosis and giving their perspective on Kanye through the experiences that they've had, which is something I'm always interested in as somebody that hasn't had those experiences. Just having a better understanding of the perspective on it that someone like Daryl could provide. And this is really thought-provoking. I mean, it doesn't even start with a lot of Kanye, but it has a lot of Kanye that gets mentioned, but it's really Daryl's journey of not just having an episode in New York, but moments of that episode and how he sees it connected to things that Kanye did. But then it takes a left turn as he gets sent to jail and what that means and the experiences that he had in jail. And it becomes as much about society's dealing with mental health and even how friends and family try to deal with somebody with mental health issues and having a bipolar diagnosis, as much as it is looking at Kanye and just putting Kanye's situation in context with something very personal that Daryl had happen with him. This is like, I don't know, I was just fascinated by this article. So highly, highly recommend you check out both this and Minda's article as well. And then we have here, big law leaders reassure firm that representation of Kanye West and Donald Trump is not a conflict of interest. So this is something that's come up a couple times on the channel, is discussing Lane Rulland, a election attorney in Wisconsin who has been working with the Kanye campaign to get his name on the ballot, and the fact that she had also represented Trump in Wisconsin to get a political ad taken off of TV. And people saying this is a conflict of interest. This proves there's like a whole conspiracy going on for Republicans trying to get Kanye to be on the ballot. And the law firm itself that she works for actually responded saying, and this was an internal email that leaked, as many of you are aware, it was widely reported in the last 24 hours that a lawyer or lawyers at our firm indirectly represent Kanye West and or his 2020 presidential campaign in an effort to have Mr. West placed on state ballots. Yeah, indirectly, I think is what you would phrase it when it's not somebody that is hired by the campaign full-time, right? Like they're not on retainer as the full-time campaign lawyers. I think that's what that's saying. But they're like indirectly representing him because in this one effort, they are his attorney or the campaign's attorney. Many of you have voiced concern regarding the representation and have raised questions regarding our conflicts policy and whether this representation was properly vetted. We have a strong conflicts policy in place, the purpose of which is to safeguard our firm and lawyers against violations of state bar rules and codes of professional ethics. It is important to remember that a conflicts policy is not intended to address controversy. Conflict checks were run and cleared for this client. We take on many clients pursuing means that engender controversial ends, especially so when you consider that controversy means different things to different people. As for dealing with potential client concerns, it is occasionally necessary to remind others that our representation of clients is not an endorsement of said client's cultural or political viewpoints. Is this SUNY Brockport? But an acknowledgement that they are entitled to hold those viewpoints and to assert them. This is what we do as lawyers. We represent our clients ethically, vigorously, blah, 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 blah. So they're essentially like lawyer talking their own lawyers rather than giving them actual answers. They don't say how the conflicts were run and why they passed, which is, I guess, would be the immediate question. How did you determine this wasn't a conflict of interest? But it's just interesting to hear them saying outright that there is no conflict of interest and we stand by that. And then lastly, a fun note, this article from July 2020, but Russell Crowe's bizarre Kanye West encounter. It's actually not as dramatic as the headline makes it seem, but we have here that essentially Kanye was at the same place that Russell Crowe and rugby star Sam Burgess were at. They were at the China Tang restaurant at the Dorchester Hotel in London. And Kanye came down and was just like, yo, can I hang out with y'all? And Russell's like, yeah, cool. Like, come on, Kanye. And he had his laptop with him. And he starts playing unreleased songs. So this would have been back in like 2014, 2015. And 4 or 5 Seconds was one of them. And yeah, he was just scrolling through a bunch of stuff he had been working on. Here's some design stuff I've been doing, like what he posted to Twitter the other day, right? Just showing off what he had been working on. So here's this song I recorded with Paul McCartney. So he played it and it hadn't come out yet. And we were like, yeah, it's great. So he played it 4 or 5 times, which I can't tell if that's like Crowe being cheeky, like 4 or 5 seconds, 4 or 5 times, or just not even realizing what he was doing. But at one point, Sam is singing along, except he doesn't really know the words. I could see a little twitch in Kanye's eye. I said, Sam, you know you're getting the words wrong in the wrong day. And Sam was like, it doesn't matter what day it is, man. Then he was like, Kanye, it doesn't matter what day it is. Kanye just looked at him across the table. I imagine that gif where it's just Kanye like this. And said, yeah, it matters what day it is. Kind of does matter what day it is, right? We're 4 or 5 seconds from wilding. Like, you don't wild on a Tuesday, Wednesday. It's like a weekend song. You're excited for the weekend. It's Friday. Like, yeah. Matters, Sam Burgess. So that's it. That's all that we got for Kanye news. And if you're looking for a quick Donda update, all I got for you is that Boo said that it's coming soon on his Instagram live story a couple days ago. But what does that mean? Like, he was saying soon last week, and now he's just saying soon again. The one insight was just that they were having some technical difficulties and trying to get the album to the best spots available. I mean, does that just mean that they're having mixing and mastering issues? Does it just mean they're trying to figure out like some verses still, or actual aspects of the music and songs that haven't been working right? Does that mean it's imminent? We'll see. But until next time. Oh yeah, my closing spiel. If you're still watching, who's still watching like a 36-minute video? But if you are, hey. If you're enjoying the channel, liking, subscribing, and commenting lets YouTube know that this is a channel people enjoy, which is really helpful for us. It's the easiest way you can support us. We are also best known for our line-by-line lyrical analysis of Kanye's discography. Over 100 songs covered, every album except Cruel Summer and Watch the Throne, all available on our Patreon for $5 a month, which is really the main way we make money off of our content. So your support means a lot for that. 100 episodes available, hundreds of hours of content, and our Jesus is King episodes are free on podcast platforms if you want to have a little taste of what it is we do. They're also on our YouTube channel if you want to check those out. And then what else? Oh, yeah, I write books. My second novel came out recently, so if you want to see how I am as a novelist, you can check out either Killer and Victim, my first book, or Killer Unconquered, my second book. And I think you'll like them. They're pretentious literary stuff, you know? So if you like Don DeLillo or know who Don DeLillo is, or Roberto Bolaño, then you'll probably like my book, hopefully. Otherwise, yeah, if you don't know them, you know Chris Lambert and might like his book. That does it. Until next time, keep it wavy and stay loopy. Cheers.